Coast Business Radio is the home for business from the Gold Coast to Byron Bay and beyond. Whether you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, or just managing your family's assets, the Coast Business Radio podcast can help. Find the resources you need to manage your money, start your latest venture, grow your business, and be able to compete in a global market.
When you're running a business, there's no time for downtime, which is why we've introduced Business NBN. It's the business-grade NBN solution internet providers can customise for businesses, big or small. It gives you a choice of providers, great value and the potential to connect to technology to optimise your business. And with the option of premium service support available to your provider, it's built for better business. Ask your provider for Business NBN today.
This week on Coast Business Radio from Avani Broadbeach, we catch up with Brett Hone, GM, and find out why Avani Broadbeach is so successful. We dissect the latest Pulse survey on business confidence with Dr. Marcus Smith, Chief Economist with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland, talk tourism and travel with Skull International Southern Gold Coast Ambassador Lance Smith, catch up with Councillor Warren Polglaze from Tweed, and check out the new mini dining precinct in Broadbeach with Chef Braden White. And don't forget to subscribe for the latest Coast business news from the Gold Coast to Byron Bay and beyond.
Talking business, nothing but talk.
This is Coast Business Radio. Mike Ryan, nice to be with you. Don't forget, folks, if you want to find out the latest what's happening on the Gold Coast, the Tweed area and Byron Bay, to subscribe. Now, Avani Broadbeach is light, bright and an airy place to stay. It's a home away from home with all the mod cons and comforts and only a few steps from the beach. Part of the minor hotel group, Avani Properties are found in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Africa, Australia and Broadbeach. Brett Hone is GM of Avani in Broadbeach. And Brett, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Avani Broadbeach, has it exceeded your expectations?
Yeah, it has. Look, the Broadbeach. I always said that the Broadbeach area was an upcoming area, and we've seen new developments all around the Gold Coast, and Broadbeach is definitely the one that's the hottest on the coast at the moment, and we're excited to be right in the middle and be part of all of that.
Actually, I wasn't going to ask you this part, but the area of the dining precinct of Broadbeach, I can't really say it's moving, but it almost is. It's expanding at least, because now it's taking in this part of Surf Parade and the Gold Coast Highway, which you're a part of. Why do you see this happening?
Well, I think there's a lot of people moving towards Broadbeach as a dining precinct.
Yep.
There's a new cabaret opening, Flamingo. I don't know whether you've heard of that, but it's a real night spot, and the casino obviously have always led the charge in that. And now I think there's better options and higher quality options in Broadbeach now.
Because it took a bit of a whack a few months ago, because there were more restaurants closing than there were people at one stage, and this seems to have turned around. It's sort of stabilised. Some great events happened. We had Your Country event. I didn't see you with cowboy boots, by the way, but then they had the Blues Festival beforehand, and a lot of great things happening. Is this actually helped turn it around?
I think there's always that. The Blues Fest it's popular for the Blues Fest. The Country Music Festival is great. There's a lot of long lunches and things that ride off the back of that. A lot of food and beverage stuff. So, and I think Gold Coast is getting into their food culture now. So that's pretty exciting.
You can't beat I've got to say this. This is the old class act coming out here. You can't beat the Bunnings sausage sizzle.
I must say, I do love a good sausage sizzle.
Who needs a tool? You just go there, have a snag and a bit of bread. Great bread, lovely sausages. They do a great job, by the way. Some tomato sauce, or ketchup, as they say in the States, and some mustard.
It does. I'm a regular there, so yeah, I can't argue with you on that one.
Okay, tell us about Avani Broadbeach. Your customers, are they, when I say domestic, are they statewide, or are they national or international?
So we get a little bit of everything, and so does the Gold Coast. But our target market are millennials and people with a millennial mindset. Mm-hmm. And I guess when I say that, we wouldn't turn away somebody else, but because
what about me?
We'd turn you away.
Thanks.
But the Broadbeach market is a lot of conferences, and we're starting to see a fair few business travellers enjoying Broadbeach as well, meetings and now with the food and beverage, then obviously they'll have other reasons to come and visit here. But we have fast access internet. We've had people stay here just because of the internet.
Really?
I find that
well,
extraordinary.
maybe because you're about the only place for a while that had the internet.
So we've got free fast access NBN. So people are enjoying that. So that's our target market. But with the developments around Broadbeach, we'll see our market shift a little bit. We still get the family markets around Christmas time. The whole of Broadbeach changes at Christmas time, obviously.
Tell us about Avani. I mean, Avani is not a really well-known brand. It wasn't for a while, and now you have a property in Melbourne, one on the Gold Coast, Adelaide.
Yeah, so there's a couple more opening in Adelaide. There's one in New Zealand, and a couple more opening in Adelaide, and also Brisbane and Melbourne are going to see some more properties open as well. So with Avani, it's part of the Minor Hotel chain. Minor Hotels own the Oaks Group, Coffee Club, and a few other Australian interests. But Avani forms part of they've got several brands across Asia and Australia, and there's about 30 Avanis at the moment, and that's a growing brand. It's a young, trendy, hip brand for the group. But saying that, it's still an upscale product. Very good quality, and we get our fair share of all different age groups.
So being hip rules me out. Maybe I'll just head down to less hip but equally nice. Before here you were at Calypso in Coolangatta.
Yep.
The difference in the market from Coolangatta or the Southern Gold Coast to Broadbeach, what is it?
The Southern Gold Coast is very traditional. So you get your travellers who come every year, and they've been coming there for 20 years. So they've got an expectation. It's a little bit quieter,
but not December, not the start of December. It'll be rocking, thumping.
That's right. But yeah, it's just a different part of the Gold Coast, and when you go there, it's like experiencing a different part of the world. Actually.
It is.
I love it.
It's very relaxed.
Yeah.
But now you're a trendoid.
I am.
Okay, there's been there's always criticism. Always, it's the they say the squeaky door makes the most noise. I suppose in tourism, people sometimes working in the industry look for an easier path, and some say at times that we don't promote ourselves as well as we could, because you've been all over the world and you've seen how other places promote themselves. Just as a sidebar here, are we doing a good enough job in promoting the Gold Coast?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I went to a meeting just recently with Destination Gold Coast. Destination Gold Coast and Queensland Tourism are working really hard to get our fair share of the pie, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I was reading with the stats, the 45% of all convention business to Queensland comes to the Gold Coast. And that's a real feather in the cap for Destination Gold Coast and the Gold Coast Convention Centre.
Mm-hmm.
That they get such, as a destination, get so much of that conference business. So I think we are doing enough. We always love to have more people come to the Gold Coast. Yes. And then you got people blame the Aussie dollar fluctuating, but I think even though the Aussie dollar's down now, we may see some more people come to the Gold Coast. And once people experience it, they tend to come back. And at Avani, we try and give people an experience that's not just the theme parks. Mm-hmm. We want them to come to the Gold Coast and immerse themselves in Broadbeach and enjoy the area.
Where do you see the future of Avani Broadbeach? I mean, you always have to have a plan in place, and I'm sure your marketing, head office and marketing, they have these ideas. Where do you see it? Yeah,
so we're actually relaunching the brand next month. So for
tell us about
Avani,
that.
Yeah, so Avani Australia-wide, they're doing a brand relaunch. So that'll be pretty exciting. 17th of September, and so there'll be a lot of media around that. But the thing that we're really excited about at the moment, and you're probably going to mention this, but is the new restaurant and dining precinct.
You beat me to it.
Yeah,
rustling through my papers in the background, ever so prepared. Tell us about the restaurants. So there are 3 restaurants: Miss Moneypenny's, Fat Freddy's, and the Rimini Room.
Yeah, so the Rimini Room is more of a private dining experience. But Miss Moneypenny's, we're excited to be able to have in our building that precinct. There's also gaming down there as well. So it's a whole it's going to be a dining precinct, and we're sort of, even though we're right across the road from the casino, we're sort of a little bit away from all the restaurants, and so this will be just another experience for our hotel guests, but also for the community around here. We are on the site that used to be the Beach Hotel, and so they had a pub and gaming. Now we're bringing back the like a sports bar and the gaming, and then Miss Moneypenny's is just the cherry on top.
And this is what I was talking about before, the dining area, or there's new precinct that's popping up, and it seems to, I can't really say it's moving yet, but it's expanding, because now you have down the road another one, James Squires is opening, other restaurants are opening. Yep. Here we got Miss Moneypenny, got the Fat Freddy's,
yep,
and the Rimini Room. It seems to be moving towards this area, so it's good for you. Yeah,
it's definitely great for us. Our hotel guests don't have far to travel to be able to experience that all in-house, and for us, for Avani, it's really good to have an in-house food and beverage option, even though they're not a hotel run restaurant. They have a right within themselves from their Noosa restaurant, and they're bringing it down here. And I remember the owner, the developer, said that this Miss Moneypenny's was going to be similar to the one up at Noosa, but on steroids. So,
well,
I'm
sounds like a gym I go to.
See the opening.
Sounds like a gym I go to, but they're not in hospitality. Let me tell you that. Okay, you've been in the business for how long now? How many years have? Okay, you can't say before 33. Oh my God! So you started when you were 1. Okay, you've seen it. You've worked in a number of areas, number of markets. What advice would you have for someone thinking about moving into the industry? Would you say run to the hills, or would you, what advice?
No, hospitality is definitely a great industry to be involved in. I was hoping you were going to ask me, one of the questions that you might have asked me today was what's new in the industry, or what challenges do we face in the industry? And one is that skilled workforce. And that's something that I even though I did go to university, I worked from the bottom up. I started with an internship, and so having skilled workers is a really hard thing at the moment. So anyone who wants to get in hospitality, definitely welcome them, and it's a great industry to be involved in. I threw this word out before, but like, it's a trendy industry to be involved in, and the way that everything's going at the moment, you've got computers and IT and things like that, people crossing over into this industry. So it's a great industry to be involved in.
So skilled workers, is that the biggest challenge? Or is it people wanting to work in the industry, or just wanting to work?
Well, yeah, that could be one of them. But definitely skilled workers, people who need to get that experience, and we got people coming out of university who want to take my job straight away.
Don't even talk to them. Change your number.
That's right. I like them to be able to work on the front desk and even have a little stint in housekeeping or something like that, where they can get a full range of how we operate, and that's what I mean by skilled workers.
And it's always the smile. When you walk in, it's the smile, isn't it? And the eye contact.
Definitely.
Okay, we're going to play a little game here. I mentioned this before, and you said I'm running, but I've tied you down with those handcuffs. Okay, I'll mention a word, and you throw a word back at me. All right?
Yep.
So here we go. An imaginary clock. Hospitality.
Great fun.
Tourism.
Exciting.
Hotel.
Avani.
Strata title.
Avani.
Lobby.
Welcome.
Guests.
Great.
Holiday.
I'd like one.
There's 2 words. Okay. Gold Coast.
Beautiful.
The future.
The future's bright.
And success.
I'm looking for it.
I think you've achieved it. Brett, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Here's what's happening.
On Tuesday, August the 20th, it's Byron Connect. It's a fortnightly networking event from 7:30 to 9am at Barrio Restaurant, 1 Porter Street, Industrial Estate in Byron Bay. This has been Darren McCarthy for Coast Business Radio.
The Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland advocates for its members, influencing government policy and trying to make businesses more efficient and profitable. Dr. Marcus Smith is Chief Economist for the Chamber and an analyst for the Pulse Survey of Queensland Business Sentiment. The CCIQ Suncorp Pulse Survey of Business Conditions is the largest survey of Queensland businesses, providing critical insights into the sentiment of business owners and managers across the state. Marcus, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Take us through the main finding of the latest survey for the June quarter, if you wouldn't mind.
I guess this is sort of my fourth one of the Pulse. Essentially, it's sort of been telling us the same story. The June quarter, we had quite a bad March quarter. June quarter has obviously had the election, the conclusion of that, the federal election, which had it came through. It had a lot of effect on sentiment earlier in the year in March. So essentially, if we're looking at the national outlook for the economy, that's returned to neutral level. So it's obviously improved. It's not adulation. They're not very jubilant. I guess a sense of relief with respect to that result.
Mm-hmm.
State outlook has been quite low. That's really hasn't managed to get up from the sentiment levels of where it is, and it's been quite low. Going back to mid 2014, I think was where it sort of tended to drop away for the state. So essentially, there's a lot of frustration with respect to I think as I've went through the report. There's the sense of whether the red tape and the budget position and the size of the public service and that these sort of issues were sort of coming through, and I guess the businesses are really frustrated with pretty tepid demand within the economy and operating conditions. You can see that in the business conditions as well, which tend to mirror somewhat that state outlook. Sales is essentially fairly neutral, but you wouldn't be in business if you had a little bit more optimism about the future being better. It's sort of being like a farmer. You don't go out and plant crops to not hope that things are going to be better down the track. I guess that's that's what business is about. Profitability levels are very low. As those sales and revenue, even though they're sort of feel fairly neutral and optimistic, obviously, by nature. These costs, if you're starting to look at the labour costs, and, we just had our third 3% increase, signalled by that just would have come through recently, which is twice the rate of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that. Is the operating costs, obviously, which comes through for regional areas in particular. That's a very important issue there. Those costs are making it very difficult to run a business. Employment levels fairly neutral, if not sort of come off slightly. But then if you look at between the regions, they're actually more optimistic about growing staff levels, whereas it's the contrary in the southeast where they're contracting. Where they've indicated that there'll be a slight contraction. Capital expenditures have been fairly flat, but it's the same story with the region showing a little bit more optimism, contrary to the SEQ, which is a little bit more pessimistic.
Can the small businesses see a light at the end of the tunnel? There's not a train coming towards them?
Well, the thing is, if you look, small business has been falling in the state as a proportion of all businesses. Since the GFC, we've never really bounced back from that, and you can see that clearly in the graphs where it drops away there, and things have just never got back to where they were previous to that. And it's pretty scary what's going on at the moment, isn't it? We're overseas, and the obviously our larger businesses through the survey were sort of talking more about those bigger issues. It was actually large businesses were actually positive. Or if you compare, and they were significant differences in their means of responses as well to the whole Queensland whole survey. it really is that small business sector that are quite disgruntled and really doing it hard.
So how important then is small business to Queensland and maybe to the southeast of Queensland?
Well, it's very important. We are a small business state. That's, essentially, traditionally, we've small to medium-sized businesses employ 2/3 of the private sector. And the public service running about 10% of all employment, on average. Then essentially, it is the engine room of our state. And we're blessed with our large miners and everything, and the contribution that mining does to the resources do to the state, and also our agriculture. We've got our sugarcane and beef. Essentially, we are a small business state, a tradie state, which also comes into construction. We've had a difficult period. If you look at residential approvals, it's been quite a downturn in construction, especially with the across the economy, we've seen the housing prices come off and that bubble start to deflate, which is causing all sorts of problems all over the country. And that becomes a problem too, because for a lot of small businesses, the collateral in their home is what's holding, is what's sitting behind their businesses. So, they've literally got their house on the line.
Okay, just about the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland, can you tell us a little bit about the organisation and what its objectives are?
Our objectives, we provide a lot of services. Even though we're concentrated on all business in Queensland, our sort of our bedrock, is small to medium-sized businesses. So essentially, that's where we tend to concentrate on. And as I mentioned, the small to medium-sized businesses are the backbone of Queensland. So we have services. We provide services for exporters, for licenses. We also run an eco-biz section where we look at trying to help businesses save costs with respect to become more sustainable. And I guess my role, I work with the advocacy team, and keeping the government to account, providing submissions for where we can see how the government can essentially make differences to make the lot better for our small business community.
Can you see any part of Queensland exploding in business and commerce, or is it a bit iffy?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because essentially the private sector is where we're sort of faltering, and we really need to get that going. And we've had this, with the mining and all of this, the things behind the federal election, where Queensland played a very large part in that. They made the decision they to go forward with their resource sector, which not just is supports Queensland economy. WA and Queensland together produce 2/3 of merchandise exports, and when you compare that to services exports, they're only 1/3 of that nationally. So the resources sector is extremely important to not only Queensland but to the whole country. So that going forward, and the controversy around the Galilee, that's really important. You see that fleshed out in those regions, because northern Queensland and central Queensland have been probably doing it the toughest. So that's the heartland of Queensland. We really need to see that go forward, because you'd be very surprised how many of the jobs in southeast Queensland depend on the mining industry.
Before an election, there's always a bit of a downturn, or this cautious steady as she goes. After an election, generally there's a bit of an uplift. Next election for Queensland, we probably expect the same or not. Will there be an uplift, or is it sort of entrenched at the moment?
Yes, Mike. I think at the moment, with the sentiment that I see and the numbers, that is entrenched. It's the index level has been at a very similar level, for the state since 2000, halfway through 2014-15. It's really it had a bit of a rise through 2017, but then it tended to fade off again. I think if you're looking at the sentiment that I see, as it was coming up to the federal election, our sentiment readings were quite were quite low there, and they were extremely worried about very large changes in operating in different conditions. And from some of the responses that I see, I saw the sentiment was essentially different to what you were seeing in the media with respect to two-party preferred polls, etc. I think with the state, I think the state government have behind the eight ball, and they're really going to need to pick things up to garner support from the small business community, and try and improve conditions for them. I think they're going to struggle coming next year myself.
Well, fingers crossed, and I suppose a couple of good beers might alleviate part of the gloom.
Yes, definitely.
Dr. Marcus Smith from the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland, thank you very much.
Yes, thanks very much for having me, mate.
Here's what's happening.
On Thursday, August 22 from 7 till 8:30am, it's Boost Your Productivity with the local business network Southern Gold Coast. You'll walk out with a clear strategy to implement, along with an estimate of the additional profit that your business should be making with systems and better productivity at 47 Lamana Lane in Miami. And that's the latest. I'm Darren McCarthy for Coast Business Radio.
In Australia, more hours are lost in the workplace through mental health problems than for any other reason. We have to change that. Lift the Lid on Mental Illness is an Australian initiative to prevent mental illness through research. And through Lift the Lid's Adopt a Scientist campaign, you'll be able to choose an area of mental illness research that you wish to support. It's a Rotary project. 100% of every donation will be used for research. Go online, Lift the Lid, Australian Rotary Health.
This is the Coast Business Radio podcast.
Skull International Southern Gold Coast is a local tourism and travel industry network bringing together professionals from the Southern Gold Coast and the Northern Rivers area. There are Skull International branches all around Australia and indeed the world, promoting tourism, friendship and business. Lance Smith is an ambassador and past president of Skull International Southern Gold Coast. Lance, welcome.
Good morning, Michael.
Okay, tell us about Skull. What actually is Skull? It's not S-K-U-L-L. That's from a movie.
It is S-K-A-L, as in skull. If you've ever been drinking in Scandinavia, you'd understand exactly what that means.
Well, they have it here too. The olden days, when we were much less responsible. So tell us about Skull.
Okay, Skull was a result of something funny. In 1932, everyone in tourism and travel knows the word famil. And a group of people, agents from all over France, went to Scandinavia. Mm-hmm. They had such a good famil that they decided a month later that they'd have a get-together. And then that became more get-togethers, and eventually, in 1934, they decided on Skull because they had said Skull a number of times with a number of beers during the course of their Scandinavian tour.
Have hats on?
They probably did have
the
hats
horns
on.
Out of it?
They probably did. Yeah. And so in 1934, they formed with 12 clubs in 5 different countries. Now, the first president was a guy named Florimond Volkart. Great name.
Great name.
And he said his aim was to get a worldwide networking group going in the travel, tourism, hospitality industry. So that's where it went. And it's now today around the world. I think it's in just over 90 countries. There's something like 400 clubs, 50,000 members. There's a lot of members all over the world. It is the largest professional organisation in world that's promoting global tourism.
It's amazing, and you would think. I mean, on the Gold Coast, we're talking about the Gold Coast and Tweed and even Byron Bay and all around. Anybody in tourism, you would think that they would become members of as many organisations as they can, because it's a sharing and a collection of ideas.
Can I just say that way back in history, in my days with Lend-Lease, when we owned Thredbo and all the country comfort properties and the rest, we joined Skull way back then, and the networking that it afforded me, talking to all the people within my own industry and how we could advance it, it was just invaluable. So here we are, 40 odd years later, I'm still in it, only now in the retired section and loving it.
And you're an ambassador. Tell us about what an ambassador does. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You go out there and you promote, but what are the finer things about being an ambassador?
The ambassador is a nice way of saying you're too bloody old to work in it anymore, so what are you going to do to pay us back?
No, that's funny.
So you then become, say, well, I've had a long time involved in various skull clubs, and it's time I paid back. So when Peter Doggett, God love him, Peter.
Yes, well, somebody has to.
Yes. When Peter came to me 6-7 years ago and said, look, I'd like to open up a chapter down on the southern Gold Coast, because they've been going on the Gold Coast for 38 years.
That's a long time, isn't it?
Long time. In 1960, I think they started. But then they came down there, and I was the inaugural president way back 5 years ago when we started on the southern Gold Coast. And yes, it does pick up the people who are involved at management level on all sorts of things, attractions, anything to do with hospitality, the resorts, the apartments, the airports, the hire cars and all those sorts of things. It's great.
So how's it changed? I mean, 40 years, that's older than I am. I'm lying, by the way. As Lance rolls his eyes, that's why we're doing it on radio at the moment. So how has it changed, though, in 40 years?
Okay. I am amazed at how people are slow to react to change across the globe.
Yeah, change is great. Anything that's stagnant, you should throw out.
Change can be the greatest thing in the whole wide world if you embrace it. Okay? Our networking has changed absolutely amazingly with the advent of online stuff. And we've had to adapt to that, and I don't think we've done it all that flash. When I first joined, it was a case of you only ever saw these networking people at major functions, and it was an easy thing to be able to get along to as many as you could to network properly. Today, they network on a screen. And so you've had to adapt, and what we've had to do is to make sure that we get more powerful guest speakers along to every meeting. The fact that we get our members up on the floor to tell us what their businesses are and how they can best, work in with what we're doing as a club level, and make it damn interesting, and it's got to be done properly, otherwise we're all too busy.
We've interviewed Ivan Meisner from BNI, and Ivan, I think, is probably the father of networking because he's very good. And he actually believes, as you do, that there's one-to-one thing. You can't beat it. I mean, even with Brett talking about, the welcome at in the lobby and the smile and stuff. When you do something online, it may be at times efficient, but you lack that human contact, don't you? And that's where Skull is very good, because you're meeting with like-minded professionals that have got the same goal: 1, to make money; 2, to provide a great product; 3, to be involved in tourism.
You did right, because one of the things that gets me, if you look at advertising today, everybody is spending big dollars trying to tell you that they're very personal. You're going to speak to a real person, you're going to see a real person. That's because their feedback and surveys is telling them people are fed up with machines and talking to machines and not real people. We are in the business of hospitality and tourism, which means we're in the business of all being characters. Everyone who works here at Avani has to be a character, not just the girls behind reception, not just Brett, not just everybody who works here is an ambassador for this particular group. And the people are spending good money to stay here, and you've got to be aware that they're looking for someone to sort of treat them a little bit special.
What's your vision for Skull?
I would love to see them, whereas we used to be this great networking organisation, we can still be that, but using all the mod cons. You don't have to do it in the rooms, around the tables. What I'd like to see them now is be a place where people within the industry come to on a regular basis to hear great speakers, to be updated with all the new things that are happening around them, and keep them up to date with what's in the industry. And at the same time, it's only 2 hours of your life. It's a breakfast in our case. So at the same time, 2 hours that you really look forward to once a month, that you can just actually let your hair down and talk to, as you said, like-minded people.
It was interesting. We talked about Skull being around for a long time, since the early 30s. 32. Yeah. You've been not since 1932, but for 40 years, and it's that's a long time. But organisations, and we talked about change before. Organisations need new blood. So the question is Skull or Skull International, from the local chapters to state to national to international, are they doing enough to get newer members and younger members?
Okay, if I've got to be frightfully honest, no. I've started to realise we've just done a club survey, and we thought we were the friendliest people in Australia.
Oh, you are?
The perception for people joining us is that we're an old mates club, and too many of the older guys are sticking together and sit with each other, blah, blah, blah. Very true stuff. And you've got to look at that and say, we have to change. We have to be broader. We have to be more welcoming. And we're looking at people. I mean, Kodak. Someone at Kodak years ago said, don't worry about this new digital stuff. It's only a passing fad. Kodak, of all people to go bad.
Yeah.
Gosh, you can't, and we've got to be careful that we don't bury our heads in the sand. So no, we're not doing a good enough job, and we're going to do a good job.
Okay, how?
We're going to turn around and just, instead of just issuing motherhood statements about how welcoming we are, we're going to be welcoming.
Fantastic. Now, we talked about change with Skull. The area that you represent, let's just talk about Southern Gold Coast. Some of the major challenges. I mean, there are, at the moment we have end of November, start of December. We've got the Sand Tunes Festival.
Yep.
It seems like a lack of consultation with the people that they represent. So the challenges besides these one-off events, but there seems to be no consultation. So is the major challenge lack of consultation, or is the major challenge, as you said before, change? People don't like change.
Great question, and there is an answer. I think it lies in the very, very valuable communication that we just don't have these days. Let me just tell you something we did about 4 years ago. We were talking about the Tweed Valley and all the stuff there, and I'm looking at people just glazing their eyes over because they didn't even know where the Tweed Valley was. And so we decided we'd have one of those car observation rally things and ask them questions and take them to the various products down there. It turned out to be the best day that a lot of people had had for years and years and years. And so we started to do it because we realised that people within our own industry don't understand the product that's on the ground floor because our communication's not good enough.
Yeah, and also because we go online. Oh, there's a pic, there's a photo, there's a bit of a video there. You can't beat being there.
No, very true. Being there, touching it, feeling it, smelling it, it's true. It's true. And we've got so much to offer. Yes, our club covers basically from sort of well south of, say, Burleigh Heads to Byron Bay. That's the area that we want to
That's
cover.
a big area and a beautiful part.
Huge area. And there's some fantastic stuff there. And people just don't understand it. People don't know it. When they see it, they come back and say, wow, didn't know that was here. So our job is to try and get every lobby, every reception, everyone that's involved in our industry to say to people, why don't you stay a bit longer on the coast and expand yourselves out and get into the Tweed Valley and go and have a look at some of the product down there. It's great.
40 years with tourism, you've had a wonderful career. Is there any one business, though, that you've seen just even recently that stands out, that says, this is new, this is exciting, this is going to do well?
That's a great thing, because we were talking about developing new product. Brand spanking new, about 8 weeks ago, there was a place called the Husk Distillery down at Tumbulgum.
Now we're talking my language.
Right. Now, okay, apparently gin is the in drink. I don't know. I'm not into that. But
delicious.
They've been open for, I think from memory, it's 8 weeks or 9 weeks. I understand that they have taken over the first projected 12 months takings. Now, it is wonderful in our industry to see someone who does their homework, who builds not stage one hoping that they can make some money and turn it into stage two, because first impressions are what you see when you walk in the door the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So they have built down there. We went there, a whole group of us last Sunday. They were amazed at how many people were there, and the quality of their product is fantastic. That's the sort of thing that's on offer around here, and in our industry, those success stories are great. The Australian are spectacular up there at Movie World. People who think outside the square and produce something that the people coming here say, oh, I wasn't expecting to see that. That is great. That's the sort of product we're looking for.
And this is where Skull is so great, because you can share ideas, you can get new ideas, great speakers. Now, if somebody wants to find out more about Skull International Southern Gold Coast, how do they do that?
Real easy. All they do is that they jump onto their machines, and they then get in touch with Skull Southern Gold Coast. They're on, if they just put that into their machine, that comes up. I know that it's there. Then our secretary, Larry Seaburn, Larry,
lovely Canadian,
Burn. He's a great guy.
He is Canadian too.
17. Now at gmail.com. Yeah, the Moose is Canadian, and he joined Skull in Canada, and we're lucky to have him out here. Great guy.
They exported him to us, and we're very grateful to Mr. Trudeau.
Yes,
or whoever was Prime Minister at that stage. Okay. Couple of things before we go. One word answers. Skull.
Networking.
Gold Coast.
Undersold.
And tourism.
Invaluable.
And one more I wasn't going to. Lance.
Loves life.
2 words. Okay, you're forgiven. Lance, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Here's what's happening.
In Tweed Heads on Thursday, August the 22nd, from 9:30am till 3:30pm, don't miss the Facebook series Tweed by Nortec Small Business Solutions Business Connect. This workshop is totally hands-on. You'll learn how to use your Facebook business page as a way of creating loyal customers, finding new customers, and how to improve your online sales using Facebook Business Manager. The address for the workshop is 87 to 89 Minjungle Drive, Tweed Heads, and the cost just $25. And that's just one of the many business events on the coast. I'm Darren McCarthy for Coast Business Radio.
Councillor Warren Polglaze is a long-serving Tweed Shire councillor, president of Tweed Chamber of Commerce, a former mayor and involved with many regional community organisations. This year, Councillor Polglaze received the Medal of the Order of Australia for service to local government and to the community for the Tweed area. And Councillor, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to always communicate with what's happening in the Tweed Shire and what's happening with the Chamber of Commerce.
Now, as president of the Tweed Chamber, though, what are your members feeling about the current business conditions? Are they optimistic?
Well, every small business is optimistic in the Tweed, but at present there are some businesses that are doing reasonably well, and there are some that are finding it difficult. But, you know, there's always a white knight appears every now and then, and Tweed Mall will be opening their Aldi store next week, and there's also some very new mums and dads small coffee shops and a couple of dress shops reopening in Tweed Mall. So there's a confidence booster in that area, which as a chamber we appreciate the major corporates investing in the Tweed, and which attracts other small businesses. That's good.
So which areas are doing better than other areas? You mentioned some are doing it better than others. So which are the areas that are doing it well, and which are the areas that probably need to not reinvent themselves, but to hopefully conditions go their way?
Well, you realise most of the coffee shops seem to be extremely busy all the time, but I think the shops involved in clothing and apparel areas are always conducting major sales in both the major shopping centres of Tweed City and Tweed Mall, and that's an indicator, I think, that there's a shop in Tweed Mall that's been there for 20-odd years that sells women's apparel. May consider not operating from after Christmas because figures are down. Now, that's an indicator that people aren't spending in some of those areas.
So what are the things local government is doing to support business growth, say, in the region?
Well, locally, Tweed Shire has been identified as a regional growth centre, and what it does is enables council to be able to get better conditions when we do borrowings, and also we've boosted our economic development unit in Tweed Shire to try and assist small businesses where we can. If you're opening a small business and you wish to defer payments, we can do a payment plan for anyone that's lodged at the A for small business, which is an assistance. But the state government is always through mainly supporting the Chamber of Commerce to help stimulate where they can by putting on workshops with IT people or marketing people. It's always continuous, but when you're running a small business and you've got to be there yourself, it's hard to get away sometimes to attend these sort of opportunities.
Do you see a conflict at times being part of the Tweed Chamber of Commerce and being a Tweed Shire councillor? I mean, council at times can be, ominous or scary, whereas the chamber tends to they want to promote business. That's what they're all about. Push the business, make yourself more successful, and so forth. So is there a conflict between one hat and the other hat?
I don't see it as a conflict. I've been in small business all my life. I've never done anything else. And I push the point of small business probably because I'm a Tweed Shire councillor, and enables me to see where there's a small business that may be having an issue that I can be of assistance, because I know both the small businesses operators and I know some of the issues that are happening in council. So in lots of ways it enables me to help push the business along. I will always be totally dedicated to supporting small business because a lot of small businesses, when they get involved in opening up a new business, they look at the hoops they have to jump through and it's very frightening. And I think because I chair the chamber and also my council, I think I have an advantage where I can assist a lot of those people on how to get an outcome.
You've been in business yourself. You know what business is all about. You deal from all ends of the this business. I won't say conglomeration, but like a bowl of spaghetti at times. When do you know when you're ready to start a business? I mean, you've seen people saying, I want to start a business. I'm sick of doing that. Or I want to start a coffee shop because I like the coffee. Not really good reasons. So when can you see that somebody's ready to kick off a business?
Well, most small businesses that start from people that are employed in a business which they think that they gain enough knowledge, experience from that business they're already working in, that they can branch out and do it on their own. They look at the skills they've got and how they can put those skills and get a better reward by working longer hours themselves, and that's how they normally start. Sometimes people jump from a business, from a lifestyle working for a salary into a small business which they've never had a lot of experience in, but it looks to be a good business. That is very challenging to any person to do, and you've got to be extremely personal, because 50% of the small business operators are not successful, and that's a concern. And one of the reasons is because the capital involved and the issues that you don't see when you jump into small business, when you're working for wage, you don't see some of those issues. All of a sudden, you're part of solving problems, looking for finance and all those issues which small business suffer, and that's where it normally comes from. People wanting to improve themselves in life, and they believe by operating their small business they can do that. It normally happens in the late 20s to early 30s, and some people are successful, and some find it very difficult to make.
Well, a guy once said to me, "You'll never find, that life balance, a balance in business. What you will find is harmony." What's your views on that?
Well, life balance for small businesses is extremely hard, and if you're growing your business and trying to make it be successful, there can be very challenges in your personal life and family because of the commitment to the business and your financial commitment that you may have put more into the house, the dog and the cat, and even the mother-in-law to raise the funds to get the business up and away. So that's the challenge. And really, sometimes in small business when things get a bit tough, you really need a very supportive family around you to help you get through some of those issues. Look, we've been through it personally myself, so I understand that the challenges that come and the commitment you make to be a success. A lot of people don't want to be a failure, and you need that harmony, support behind you sometimes when things get really tough.
Now, there was an important issue being discussed by Council this week concerning bans on companies who have worked with Adani. What's the latest?
The latest is that Council has now withdrawn its opposition to any contractor that may be involved in tendering for Adani or the Carmichael mine. My personal position was I've never ever supported Council being involved in issues which are thousands of miles from us and have very little influence within the Tweed Shire at all. That position was overturned last night, so consequently any person that's had an involvement with any of those mines in Queensland will no longer be penalised for tendering for opportunities in the Tweed.
If this had gone through, do you think it would have impacted much on business throughout the Tweed?
No, it wouldn't have had very little impact whatsoever. I think there's more issues to do with some of the elected body talking about climate change and issues like that, and using Adani and what they're doing and like coal mining and water issues which it's been used as an argument. But really it wouldn't have a lot of issues in the Tweed because a lot of people are not aware of it, but there are some contractors that we would be using that may have some affiliation, but it's extremely difficult to be able to check that out and understand if they have or they haven't. So I always thought the opinion that how are you going to monitor and check this, because there's really not a lot of resources in Tweed Shire Council to be able to do that.
Okay, and before we head off, you're being involved in business from all sides of the coin, both sides of the coin. In fact, there's only two sides. The best success story that you've come across in business?
Oh, one of the greatest rewards I get as a business operator who's on the retirement end of business now, and as a counsellor, is to see whether you've been able to support someone starting off in small business or someone in small business, where a decision you make or they come and seek your advice, to see them prosper and do better than what you did in your business, my business personally. That is the greatest reward I see from a small business, and many times I've been asked questions about how do I do this or how do I do that, and I've always obliged where I can to assist them to be able to get to a better position in their life and therefore their business. And, really, unless small businesses work together and encourage each other, a lot of the small businesses will never grow. But the attitude's got to be that who was your opposition today in small business may be your joint venture tomorrow. And a conversation can change a business. And I think that's extremely important.
Okay, and if somebody wants to get hold of Councillor Warren or just the Tweed Chamber, one number or two numbers?
Just one number.
Which is?
0428 961 306.
Warren, thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll do this again.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Here's what's happening.
On Friday the 23rd and Saturday the 24th of August, it's Digital Marketers Down Under Connect 2019. It's at the Gold Coast Convention and Exhibition Centre in Broadbeach. The Digital Marketers Down Under Connect is Australia's best digital marketing conference for agencies, marketing professionals and solopreneurs. To find out more, visit the website dmdu.com.au. And that's the latest. I'm Darren McCarthy for Coast Business Radio.
In Australia, more hours are lost in the workplace through mental health problems than for any other reason. We have to change that. Lift the Lid on Mental Illness is an Australian initiative to prevent mental illness through research. And through Lift the Lid's Adopt a Scientist campaign, you'll be able to choose an area of mental illness research that you wish to support. It's a Rotary project. 100% of every donation will be used for research. Go online, Lift the Lid, Australian Rotary Health.
You're listening to Coast Business Radio with Mike Ryan.
Braden White has previously been sous chef at two-headed Brisbane restaurant Stokehouse Q, executive chef at Noosa's multi-award-winning Ricky's River Bar and Restaurant, was a founding executive chef for Hatch & Co. and The Apo. Originally from Toowoomba, Braden has also been featured on MasterChef Australia. He recently returned from Bali, where he was the group executive chef for 8 Degree Projects. Now back in Oz and on the Gold Coast, in Broadbeach in particular, he's ready to open the Good Time Group's multi-venue dining precinct in Broadbeach. 3 different outlets: Miss Moneypenny's, Fat Freddy's Beach Bar and Diner, and a spectacular private dining space, the Rimini Room. Great to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
A really exciting venture. I mean, not one restaurant, not 2, but basically 3. How the hell are you going to do it? And tell us about these new restaurants, including the Rimini Room.
How am I going to do it? I'm not sure yet. I'm a bit scared. No, all good. We've got a good team in place to start off with, so that'll help us. I've been part of a few openings before, so that'll obviously lay in my favour as well, so we should be okay.
You've done this before, all over Noosa, Brisbane, Bali.
Yep, and also open Stokehouse Brisbane as well in Queensland. So
tell us about Miss Moneypenny's.
Miss Moneypenny's is the derivative of Miss Moneypenny's in Noosa. So same concept, same menu design. The menu will be slightly different to Noosa. Obviously, still focusing on their famous pizzas that they do up there, so we'll have them on the menu. But we'll add my kind of flair to it down here and try and make it a little bit different.
What is your kind of flair?
I guess we just...
terrible. What's your flair? Come on, tell me about it.
I guess we just want to try and have a little bit more fun and make the diners a little bit more interested in the food and not do everything that everybody else does. We want to do different things.
Okay, the next question, because you keep saying these little teasers, what are the different things? We want to know.
I guess the main one that we always focus on is in the breakfast menu. We want to do like a strawberry white chocolate pancake number.
Oh, yum.
But as it comes out, it'll be black and white.
Oh, really?
So we want to kind of play with the diners' heads a little bit. But obviously on the flip side, make sure it's delicious.
But you know this is breakfast. You should never play with people's heads at breakfast time. They've just woken up from a big night out.
I understand that, but Instagram is very important these days. So it's Instagram and we'll do well.
I think you'll be listening to your marketing department far too much. Okay, what's the audience for all 3? I mean, because each one will be different.
Sure. I think for Fat Freddy's, the audience is definitely the beer drinkers, the beer and whiskey drinkers that like to have...
I'm there.
Like dude food, I guess, is what we're doing in Fat Freddy's.
What sort of food?
Things like hot dogs, hamburgers, loaded fries, Wagyu jerkies, you know, everything that you want to eat in a bar, we'll have on the menu.
Fantastic.
So essentially all the classic American dishes, we'll put our own little twist on them.
Okay, such as
a po' boy with little Moreton Bay bugs we'll put on there.
Bit fancy.
Yeah, we're going to do a hot dog, but like a variation of a hot dog that's very beautiful to look at, but also delicious to eat. So yeah, it'll be very American driven, but chef plated.
Okay, and the other ones, other restaurants?
Miss Moneypenny's, the audience for us is everybody. You know, we want to attract families, you know, people on anniversaries. We don't want it to be a special occasion restaurant. We want it to be an all-occasion restaurant.
And the Rimini Room?
Rimini Room is essentially just our little function space, which we can take corporates, weddings, parties, hens parties. Well, I hope so. But yeah,
you'll be jumping out of the cake.
Yeah, I can do that, no problem.
I don't want to go to that one. Okay, does the restaurants, a lot of restaurants open and a lot close. what makes this different, these 3 restaurants? Because a lot of thought's gone into it, enormous amount of thought. Location-wise, it's fantastic. So why will these restaurants be more successful or stay open? Because look down Surf Parade. Tell us.
Mate, I think we'll be successful because we've got a good team behind us. We've invested in good people who know what they're doing and can add value in all different fields. We also are going to have a wow factor within the building and the design, not just the food and not just the beverage.
Yep.
So everything will come down to what it looks like, what it tastes like, and that's what I think will set us apart from everybody else.
And it's all very well getting into the tourist market, but the locals are so important, aren't they? Because when the tourists aren't here, the locals have got to keep coming back. So how do you market to the locals and then to the tourists? Because they're different.
Sure.
I mean, it's one head, 2 legs, but they're different.
Mate, I think the locals are our bread and butter.
Yep.
We have to look after those first and foremost. I think they both kind of play into a similar role as well. You know, as long as the food's consistent and delicious, and the offering is consistent and delicious, I think you capture both markets. We will capture the tourist market because of our offering and because of the design, and people will know about it because they've seen it on Instagram, they've heard about it in magazines, you know, they've read about it on an aeroplane. So we'll get the tourists because of that, I believe. But the locals are important to us. You know, we're not going to overprice ourselves. We're not going to price ourselves out of the market. We're going to be very sharp on pricing, and the food will be different to what everyone's seen. I think that's why the locals will come to us.
Okay, Brizzy, Noosa, Bali, all different areas. Gold Coast is really different. I mean, from the surface it looks the same. The approach, how's your approach to this compared to the other areas?
Yeah, I think the approach here is you need to be affordable. You need to have value for money. And I think you need to be super consistent. Yeah, where in Bali, like, you still need to be consistent, but it's a very transient market. You know, you're not going to see the same people yearly. You're just not going to happen. But in Gold Coast, that has to happen. So we need to be consistent.
I have to wonder, I mean, we did a food series in the States and interviewed dozens and dozens of chefs, and I often wonder, why the hell would you do it? I mean, it's all very well, you know, people, I like a coffee, so I'm going to buy a cafe and make coffee. They get there, it drives them nuts. I like to cook. I can't cook very well, but I wouldn't become a chef. So what makes a chef? I mean, because the hours, they're long, they're intense, it's like a pressure cooker, isn't it?
Yeah, man, it's just dedication. There's nothing else. You can't be a cook or a chef for the title. You can't be a chef or a cook for the money, because it's just not there. You just got to do it for dedication. If you love what you do, you can be a cook. But if you don't, you should choose something else.
Something else. Just go out to a restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just thinking because all the chefs we chatted to, the food was always outstanding. It looked great, and I sort of think, is it like a Picasso? Paints a picture, then somebody eats it. I mean, do you get a bit upset when they eat your food after this beautiful presentation? Like, don't eat it. It's a beautiful piece of art.
No, I think that's good. I think that's the end result for me. You know, as long as they don't send it back.
Mine always looks great, but let me tell you, the looks are deceiving.
Yeah, no, I like to make nice looking food, and you know, see what the guest has on their face, if it's a smile or whatever. You know, that's always a good end result.
What made you become a chef?
Oh, that's a good question. Everyone asks me that.
All right.
I liked cooking when I was younger. I used to play around in the kitchen at home with Mum, but I never really wanted to be a chef. I went to a trade show, I guess, when I was in high school, and there was a bunch of things there. Could have become a carpenter or a plumber or be a chef. And there was an opening at a restaurant that I knew in town that we used to go to all the time, and they had a school-based apprentice position available. So I did that for a couple of weeks and just fell in love with it.
Wow. So when you started, and let's say 6 months into it, you're really cooking, to now, how has your perception of being a chef and the whole industry changed? Or has it changed?
Oh, man, it's definitely changed. back in the day when I started, you used to get burnt and things thrown at you, but you can't do that anymore.
That was only at home, though.
Yeah. So it's definitely changed. It's a lot more professional now, I think, you know, like you need to watch what you say and watch what you do, and I guess the whole training has changed as well. You know, you need to be more conscious of training, where back in the day it was kind of like, here, do this, and you don't get told how to do it properly, and that's why you get in trouble. But now, you know, I've definitely focused on that, is training people.
Advice. Just say, okay, I want to become a chef. You've heard my sad and sorry story about my cooking, so you'd say, don't jump out of an aeroplane, do something else, but don't become a chef. But advice for someone wanting to be a chef and what to expect.
Yeah, of course. I always say to guys, if you want to be a cook, be a cook. But you need to know that it's hard work. You know, you need to understand that you don't have a social life because people want to eat on Friday and Saturday night. So you can't go party with your friends, you know, but it is what it is. And that's why I always come back to dedication. You know, if you want to cook, you have to cook. There's no other way.
It's interesting. You say cook. You want to be a cook. I always think of you as a chef.
Yeah, but we're all cooks.
Yeah, but you're a really good cook.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people say that, but you know, Thomas Keller, one of the best chefs in the world, he calls himself a cook.
Wow.
You know, we're all cooks. The chef's just a title.
Okay, you're at home. You're not working for the night. What do you eat? What would you eat at home? What's a good night out without having to do it yourself?
Oh, mate, we have a few different nights at home, but Sunday's usually Mexican taco night.
Oh, that sounds good. Where do you live?
Yeah, exactly. But most, like, a decent meal for me and the family at home is just a nice simple salad, a nice piece of protein, and a simple sauce. Like, nothing crazy. We don't go out and do 3-course meals and stuff like that.
Wow.
It's just nice and simple, fresh stuff from the local markets, you know.
Do you ever get sick of food?
Nah. Do you get sick of radio?
Nah. But I was just thinking, I mean, because you're cooking. It's like I can't. Sometimes with music, I'd go, nah, no more, can't do any more. But you know, within a couple of days, you're back into it. So do you ever burn out? That's probably a better question.
You get tired.
Yeah.
But you don't burn out. I think if you ever get to that point, if I ever get to that point, that's when I'll hang my apron up. Because you can't burn out. You know, 16-hour days are hard work, but you never get sick of food.
Okay, great food, lobster, beautiful fish, caviar, prawns or shrimp in the States. The best one would have to be a burger. So tell us the secrets to a great burger. Now, forget the beer, because really anything with a frothy head's okay, but
sure.
Tell us the secret to a great burger, because people say, oh, you can't mess up a burger. You can.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely can.
What's a great burger from you?
Mate, I think the mainstay has to be the patty.
Yes.
You know, you have to use quality meat. If you're not using quality meat for your patty, you've gone wrong to start off with. You know, start there. Obviously, the bun's important as well. You know, it needs to be nice and soft. Can't have too much softness though. At the same time, needs to be able to hold the weight of the burger. Downstairs in Fat Freddy's, we're going to use 85CO mince, which is 85% meat, 15% fat. Chuck brisket blend. You know,
yum.
So we're going for lots of more tougher cuts, which will give the meat some more texture and obviously more flavour. But yeah, you definitely can stuff up a burger.
Well, yeah, the best way I always found was, and a chef was saying once that the meat, you need to have the fat in it. So he would always go for the not so lean meat, because you've got to have the fat in it. And I do a burger, and I think this is really cooking, and it's like there's no taste to it.
Yeah.
So that's where the fat comes into it.
Fat's flavour, mate.
Fantastic.
Flavour.
Now, when do we open?
We open Fat Freddy's next Friday, give or take. Looking on the 24th.
Yep.
Kitchen's ready. Kitchen's all good to go. We've done some trialling and testing up in Noosa. So yeah, we're all set. Yeah, can't wait.
Braden, thank you very much.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for having me.
You're listening to the Coast Business Radio podcast.